Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us for today's board chair check-in and update meeting. My name is Wilmarie Newton, and I will be your moderator today. In order to avoid background noise, I ask that you do please mute yourself if you're not speaking. However, you can unmute yourself if you would like to ask a question, or you can type it into the chat box. If you have a webcam, we welcome you to turn it on so that we can make this more interactive. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be archived on CABE's website under Services. And now I'd like to introduce Lisa Steimer.
Great. Thanks so much, Wilmarie. It's wonderful to see you all this morning. And we have several of our mentors who are mentoring board chairs joining us today. So welcome to you all. We're delighted to have you with us and joining in the conversation. The main topic that we wanted to talk about today, and certainly we'll open it up to other concerns and hopefully positive experiences you can all share since we last gathered, but inspiring ideas regarding graduation. And I'd like to broaden that to just end of year inspiring activities. So I will leave that on the table for you all to join in as you would like. And just before we get going, board chair mentors, just so you know, yes, we do record this meeting, but if the conversation goes in a direction where it shouldn't be archived on the website, we make that decision and we don't archive that. So just know that this is a very safe place for board chairs to be sharing ideas, exchanging ideas, and picking one another's brains. So with that said, I open the floor for inspiring end of year activities, ideas, those sorts of things. I'm practicing my comfort level with silence.
I do have a question, but it's not specifically graduation. It's more inspiring activity. So I was waiting and seeing if people had graduation questions first.
I think we can keep it as a broader end of year activities, because while certainly graduation is the culmination of at least 13 years of education of our students, there are other exciting activities that do take place as school winds down for the year. So I would say let's tackle it more broadly.
Okay. Well, our issue is we have, I mean, that issue is probably the wrong word, but we're coming up on a 75th anniversary on our building, and we're looking at what to do to celebrate that to kind of broaden town involvement. There's been suggestions of like an all-year reunion and bringing like beloved former staff back and various other things. But I'd love ideas about how other people have handled that, things people have done that can keep the town closely connected to the school. But again, I feel like I don't want to pull it away from graduation if people had graduation questions.
Lee, I'd be very happy to talk with you offline about different things that CABE did for our 100th anniversary. Certainly a little different than a school for sure, but you may be able to take something and then run with it and make it applicable for your school district
That would
or
be
for your school.
wonderful. Yeah, we've gotten some good suggestions. I'm trying to broaden that out, and thank you. That would be wonderful.
You might want to consider using it as a kickoff for a campaign to try and build a new school.
Well, we're in a big campaign to improve the one we have, and a big capital campaign. So the building's in surprisingly good shape. The needs a number of grants to keep it that way, but we've taken very good care of it over the years and updated it.
Excellent. Any other ideas for Lee?
Lisa, this isn't actually for the group, but I've had a couple messages since there's a lot of new faces. If people could add to their name tag on the screen where they're from, or if you're a mentor, because I see a lot of people aren't, they're not sure who everybody is. So I just
That would be
added,
great.
I'm going to add CABE to mine.
Yep. That would be great. Thank you. Thank you, Nick.
I'm not sure if everyone's quiet because I'm on the call.
Never stopped us before, Leonard.
That is very true.
So I'll bring up something interesting.
Thanks, Patty.
How is everyone doing with kind of coordinating all of the award ceremonies and all of the end of the year activities? And recently, over the past years, the Board of Education has always recognized certain people, and we used to do that at one of our meetings, and we've kind of pulled that out now, and we're going to be doing it at the underclassmen and senior awards. So when we have those going on, we also have one at the middle school that's going on, the elementary school. And I kind of thinking in the back of my mind, I kind of want to get something that's more broad-based for all of the schools and make it a big celebration. It seems like at our district, and I don't know if any of you face this, it's kind of fragmented all over the place. Do you guys do one central kind of thing with the seniors and underclassmen, or how do you guys break it up?
Arturo and then Tina.
My suggestion would be to keep it simple, and be careful not to add more events. One of the reasons part of the reason that it feels fragmented is because that's organic to the fact that you have multiple elementary schools. So each school is going to hold its own event for their sixth graders. Then you have a middle school or perhaps more than one, and each one of those, or perhaps they can come up with a joint event. And when it comes to high school, they also probably have their own way of celebrating graduation, plus the students who are not graduating at the time. So I think this one is one where I would rely more on the leadership on each on your superintendent and the way the specific grade or school leadership organizes these events. And I mean, perhaps adding one, adding an additional event. I don't know if you're going to get the attendance or participation that you're hoping for. It might cost you more if you do it in Zoom. I don't know that goes, but that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, we're just doing, there's one at the middle school. We only have one elementary, one middle, one high school. The high school has underclassmen night, then senior night, then of course spring banquet for athletics, and then the Board of Ed one. And because we have a new superintendent and it's a little bit fragmented, I just want to piggyback. Next year I think it's going to be more organized, but I'm more curious, like, what are the other districts doing? Do you guys combine them, or what do you do?
Tina?
So what kind of piggybacking on what Arturo said, we have 10 schools, including the alternative high school. And we actually even added the 18 to 22 program, so make it 11. We do have celebration. So for the 1 week, it's a lot. For the 1 week, before the high school graduation, we fragment or we divide the elementaries. So we have 3 later elementaries, if you will, and 3 early elementaries. We divide them. Each 3 elementary feeds into a middle school, and then 2 middle schools feed into the high school. So for 1 week, we have different timings for each elementary moving up ceremony, and all board is invited. The board invite gets off. There's a board invite set. Each board member can choose which event they want to be part of, and there's a moving up ceremony. So that's there. Then there are 2 the middle schools have their moving up ceremony at the high school. That's a way to connect the middle schoolers or the 8th graders. I'm so sorry. My dog has a tendency to walk right in the middle every time I'm on a meeting. I apologize. And so for the middle schoolers, we have it at the high school. And again, the 2 different middle schools, 2 different days. Again, the board is invited. And what I've seen, because I have a graduating senior this year, what I've seen this year, what I've seen over the years is, if you have siblings or if you're part of it, you're invited. You're invited. They come to it, they kind of sense it, they become excited about it. And then the high school graduation for the COVID kind of forced us, and I'm glad it did in a weird way. We have a graduation ceremony on our field, at the high school field, and everybody's invited. The entire board, people come, it's open. And because if it's outside, you can just come in. So it's great. And then what I love that we've started doing is we also celebrate our alternative high school kids who graduate, because they're as much as part of our school district as any other child. So that's a big moving up ceremony. And this year we're doing something completely we haven't, the 18 to 22. So the idea is we celebrate, to Arturo's point, each of these groups, if you will, but it kind of comes together for the high school. And for Richfield Public Schools, we have something called the postgrad. The postgrad started years ago, was born out of a tragic event. It has nothing to do with the district. It is run by parents. It's a whole nonprofit. But the postgrad party is the night of the high school graduation. And it is a safe space, substance-free, run by parents, community members, and it's any parent, any volunteer community member can volunteer for that. It's amazing. I've been doing it ever since my son was in 4th grade and he's a senior. And I can tell you that excites the entire community. So it's just not at the high school. This is about Richfield celebrating all our kids. And the PTSAs, which helps do it. So the PTSAs do all these movies, the signs you see, the garden signs, graduate of this middle school, graduate of this elementary, moving up ceremony. So that's another thing. So when you drive around town at this time of the year, we see all this stuff. So different events for 1 week, the board is invited, parents are invited. It's just divided in a way that it's 1 week, different timing, so that if you want to attend everyone, you can. And I think for us, because the middle school happens at the high school, it kind of, this is your world now. This is for yours. So it helps parents feel more welcome.
Great. Thanks, Tina.
Sure.
Lindsay, you did have your hand raised.
It did. It kind of disappeared. So I think it's hard. We talk about like end of school events and years, and I think talking about districts that are, huge districts versus small districts. I'm a regional district with 2 small towns, and we kind of flip it with 5 schools. So we've got 2 elementary schools currently, like a middle, intermediate elementary, a middle, and a high. And so we have step-up ceremonies in between those schools currently. And then we identified something this year, and it's something to think about, is that we weren't really having a connection with the events at the high school with the lower levels. So parents that weren't investing in the high school, never had a chance to see how great the events were, how great the sports were. So we've made sure to really connect our younger elementary students and families with the high school. So say there's a big track event, we're inviting younger families to come up and see those to make sure, that we can keep those families in district, and kind of encourage them to see what's going on at the schools. We also have project graduation for the seniors, and we've been highlighting all of our students that have been accepted at certain colleges or jobs. So we're celebrating both of our students that are graduating and entering jobs and have job offers, as well as the ones going to college. And then our PTOs are currently extremely strong. It's hard when you don't have strong PTOs, but if you do, lean on them for the events at the end of the year. They can do great things, from like food trucks to color runs, carnivals. They just have to be planned out well. And we're just really lucky to have that support from the PTOs. But I just think it's harder, I think, with the larger districts for you guys to really figure out how you can bring community together, because there's just so many people and there's just so much room. So I think that's hard. It's easier for us. We don't run into attendance issues where there's like too many people. But that might be something to look at.
Great, thank you. Seth added a comment in the chat. talking about Night in Hand. Hand is the high school, Daniel Hand, and there's a huge overnight substance-free event, the party the night of graduation. Parents go nuts decorating. I think that that's just so much fun, and completely transforming the high school, and the goal is to provide wholesome alternatives to the typical parties that could end in tragedy. Thanks for sharing that, Seth.
Hillary does the graduation night as well. It really starts with the senior parents fundraising all year long, directly after graduation. From graduation, they get on a bus to an unknown place. And they get a little tchotchke bag and everything. And it is a true overnight event. It's quite significant. Everybody really looks forward to it. It seems like that's kind of the way that all the schools are kind of going now, which is really nice. It just keeps the kids safe.
Others regarding safe grad parties, moving up ceremonies, graduation, awards. Okay. Okay, not seeing any, I'm going to segue into what's on your mind. What do you need to share? What do you need to get some input from your colleagues about? Certainly there have been a lot of moving pieces going on, a lot of activity. So this is your time to share and pick one another's brains.
Silence is always my least favorite thing in this world. So
especially
when
especially when facilitating, I'm sitting here saying it's only 1 second, but it feels like it's been a minute.
I think I can probably speak for a few of us. I'm exhausted. It's been a long spring. I don't know if anyone wants to share how budgets went or are going. I know some of you still have votes going. We were able to pass ours first round. It was tight in one of the towns, but a win there. And then we've got some referendums for some possible building closures and bonding coming up. So I was glad to not have to go back for that. So I don't know if anyone else, or if anyone else has any issues with right to read or ELA legislation, might be something I can bring up.
Tina.
Our budget just passed. We just had a referendum. We were relatively lucky. We had complete support from the Board of Finance and the Board of Select Persons. It was a conservative budget. Our superintendent and her team worked on a way that we did not use any of the ARPA funds to fund staff. So, I know there are a lot of towns who've been struggling with the fiscal cliff. Fortunately, that has not been the case for us. However, it passed, and we did have really low voter turnout. About 6% of the town voted, which I think is kind of normal. But you know what? We passed, and we passed enough, so I'm happy. I do know that our negotiations start for our biggest bargaining unit, the teachers, in June, and I know that is going to play a significant impact on how the budgets come up. We're also, because of the right to read, and it's Richfield, and I know some of the towns probably have similar situations, and how the kindergarten legislation, the 18 to 22 or 23 legislation is going to impact. We have invited our legislators to a Board of Ed meeting where me and the superintendent are still working on the format of how this will be, but it'll be the last meeting of this year. And the idea is to understand the educational impacts. We also, our SR or SX excess fund reimbursement was actually the lowest it has been in years. So that also adds another fiscal responsibility, because these are the needs you have to meet. So these are all topics that are kind of there floating. But for now, the budget passed. We're happy with that. The one thing we changed in Richfield, I don't know if every town does it, but it's something I think worked in our favor. Every month we go to the Board of Finance, and our Director of Finance, the Superintendent, and me, and our Budget and Chair Committee, Board of Ed Budget Chair Committee, we share our end of year report. So it comes to the board talks about the budget, transfers, whatever you will, and then we go to the Board of Finance. And this has helped in the conversation. So there's no surprise. We are always talking. We give them a little heads up. We have facilities coming up. We have a master plan in the process. We had an RFP. They're going to come back and present. So they're part of these conversations, which I think has helped us have able to build that support, that communication for now. But I don't know how teachers is going to impact next year and whatever legislative impacts will be. So for now, it worked out. And this is the 4th year it worked out. We'll see what happens next year.
Terrific. Thank you for sharing. Seth, I know you have your hand up, but hang on one second. Just, I would like to call all of your attention to the chat. A number of you were adding information about your budgets there. So rather than reading each message, I just would like to draw your attention there. So Seth and then Sheila.
Yeah, so yeah, we're happy that our budget passed. We did a lot of work to try and turn out the vote, and we had an amazing 16% turnout, which is actually very good for a referendum. And I think really it's an indication that people are kind of happy with how town is going. I did want to talk briefly in response to Tina's discussion about the right to read and the reading waiver. We're another town that completely got kiboshed by the State Department of Ed, and I'm interested in hearing from other towns that were not granted the waiver. I think there's room for us to advocate together and also use the combination of our legislators to try and overcome the strength of the proponents caucus that is really pushing for this. It's a very strong caucus. I understand it. And I also honor and respect what they're trying to do. I just think that they're going about it the wrong way. And I think if we get our legislators together, we can actually promote something that amounts to giving effect to the legislative intent, which was clearly to allow districts that can show that they have high achievement in reading K-3, that they are mandated to get a waiver. So I'd like to try and get our legislators together, our town leaders together, to advocate for that in addition to CABE advocating. And then I also am interested in hearing from some of the towns who have adopted new reading curricula in response to Right to Read, and whether it is going swimmingly well. As was always predicted, there would be low-hanging fruit that you could increase your reading scores dramatically from day one, and I'm hearing that's not really happening, and that might also help us to advocate for some change to require like a more reasonable application of the Right to Read Act.
Okay. Great. Sheila, you're up next. I don't know if what you have your hand raised in part will address some of what Seth raised. And Lindsay, I'm assuming that what you have is in relation to something Seth said. Okay.
So Lisa, thank you. I should put my little self on here, my little sick self on. I wanted to say, Tina, while you are meeting with your legislators, fabulous, thank you, wonderful, wonderful. When you're looking forward to what might be happening next year, what we did we did a workshop yesterday, which CTN covered, Connecticut Network. And I'm just I should have done this before I got on with you guys, but I was going to give you their email address to see if it had come up maybe leave those if it's already come up. I don't know. Hold on. CTN,
It
here
is-
it is right here.
Yeah, the link is available, and we can ask if Will Marie could grab that and put it in the chat.
Okay, that's great. Yep, I know. So it's ct-n.com if you want to look for it. We did it yesterday. And if we have the link, that's great too. But we also will be sending out, and we did send out the 9th, a email on a wrap up, our document that we do the after session ends. We made some changes and updated some more information for yesterday, and then we'll send out our ed law summary on sometime in end of June, I suppose. And Tina, if you've got questions before you meet with your legislators, please give me a call. I'm happy to help you better understand, what will impact you all, and how you can advocate going forward. So
I did, Sheila. It was in my note to call you before we went. So me and my superintendent already talked about that. So you were right there.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Sheila. Lindsay.
So to piggyback on what Seth said, and Seth and I have been talking on this and working together and trying to come to some sort of collaborative on this whole right to read and the EL program. So Madison's like right next door to us. And we actually implemented one of the first 6 right away. It was something that was a recommendation from our co-chair superintendent and our brand new curriculum specialist at the time. And I have to say, what Seth's doing is extremely admirable. They've got test scores that are good. They've got a great curriculum going, and they're fighting for it. So if you've got something in your district that can work and should work, you really need to fight for it. I am waiting for spring scores, and I don't really have a full grasp on it, but I do believe it's actually not helping our district. And the program that we chose actually has some scaffolding issues with content because kids are behind because of COVID socially. So some of this content's above their grade level. And we're also seeing a big chunk of content that is science and social studies that doesn't align with our pacing guides or our curriculum. So we've got, it's not just shuffling our language arts program, it's actually shuffling our core classes like science, social studies. For instance, American Revolution in one grade is tied into the EL program for content, but the year before that does the American Revolution. So it's caused a lot of upheaval in places that it didn't need to if we had just, I believe, fought for the waiver. And I know it's stressful for districts to not be in compliance right now, but I'm not saying not to look into being compliant, but I just think if you have really strong curriculum, you guys just fight for it, because the 1 year of a program not increasing test scores when you could have had those either level or increasing is incredibly important. And whether we keep this program after this year, I don't know. And maybe some of the newer programs that were added after the original 6 are better than this one. But it's a good thing for all of us to be saying, whether we implemented and if we didn't. I think at the beginning it was like everyone band together that filed for the waiver that got denied. But really, collectively, we should be showing them as a whole what happened to districts that applied and implemented because they didn't get approved, whether the ones that are holding out and just saying, no, please help us, or districts that are just kind of in limbo with like a hybrid right now. It's just done a lot more damage that I think the legislation does they're starting to understand that maybe the spirit of what was going on was important, but they didn't think everything through. So that's my take on it.
Great, thanks, Lindsay. Colleen, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, in Southington, we our waiver was also denied like everybody else's. We had a hybrid curriculum that over the years, because we did add phonics back several years ago, and everything was kind of piecemeal. We didn't go and get one of the newer, the first 6 that were introduced. But this past, I want to say October, November, our curriculum coordinator and the reading specialist decided on a package, and I can't remember what the name of it was, but they all endorsed it. They brought it into the classrooms. They used it with teachers. They're going to do PD all over the summer. And they gave us a presentation 2 meetings ago, and they were all, the good thing is they were all excited about it, because the pieces that they hadn't incorporated already, this program had, and particularly, Lindsay, you were talking about the scaffolding. That was one thing that one of the newer, I think it's one of the last ones that they introduced. It had the scaffolding in it that they all bought into. So we're going to start it in September. So we'll be able to report back next year to see how it goes. We're not looking for immediate increases in our test scores. Our scores are good. Are they great? No, but hopefully we will get there. But all the teachers, everyone that I have spoken with, they've all endorsed it. So, we just figured we're not going to try to fight this, only because, as Seth said, the caucus that's behind how this all started, we just figured we're not going to fight. Our scores were good, and we'll just leave it at that. So we're gonna go with this new program, and hopefully it'll come to fruition. Our scores will improve. So keep you posted.
Thanks, Colleen. And I would add that Will Marie did add the link to the legislative wrap-up that CABE provided yesterday. It is in the chat. Thank you for doing that, Will Marie. Lindsay added a comment that I want to point out about the professional development of many of these companies are claiming to offer are not meeting the needs due to the volume, and has required Lindsay's district to form PD cohorts with other districts who implemented the same program to help each other. Okay. Other concerns, successes. Arturo.
This is more a question. Since this is impacting so many districts, is there a way for CABE to come up with some kind of a statement that gets the legislators or brings that feedback so they could consider revising the policy and the mandate or requirement, and adding resources? I mean, because there's a lot of, we dealt with that with a lot of unfunded mandates. I'm sure you have that. So there's a new requirement, but it doesn't come with funding. So it seems to me that one way to funnel information, feedback, and also advocate for an improvement here could be through CABE. I don't know if there's anything in the works along those lines.
Sheila, may I call on you to address that? And then Leonard, I know you took yourself off of mute, so maybe Sheila, then Leonard.
Hi, there I am. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So the last time that I spoke with Representative Curry, we're of the understanding that there are, certainly still towns that are upset and still trying to get to talk with STE, still trying to understand what the letter said and the specific paragraph of the letter said. I just don't know at this point how many towns are up against it. So yeah, that would be helpful for me to know. We do know that, yes, it is a powerful entity at the legislature in terms of pushback. Legislators that lobbied their fellow legislators were pushed back. And the legislators that sat with the boards in meetings, or not sat with, were in meetings with their board and the department, were dismayed. I'm using all these words, but folks, yes, we can still continue to battle. I don't know how many of you are still out there battling. And I truly don't know what we would get. But that doesn't mean we wouldn't pursue it. So there we are.
And along those lines, Sheila, also, if you could just sort of go off on just a little tangent, not regarding the unfunded mandates, what happened this session, just, a really brief synopsis, because I think there is some encouraging work there.
Yeah, so thank you, Lisa. And I'm always good for a tangent, but I will keep my it to a lesser
As am
degree.
I.
So the mandates bill did pass. Patricia was asked through legislation, the executive director was asked to convene a working group. The working group asked to have it's going to be called a council, which is more permanent, to review any upcoming mandates or existing mandates to go through again. One of the things that they did get, which was great, you all have a number of teachers, administrators have a number of professional development mandates they must meet on a yearly basis. And we all tooled through some of the professional development and got them so they're not every year, they're every 5 years. So that's been helpful in terms of savings of time. And it also allows your district an opportunity to dive deeper on certain ones, dedicate the same amount of time every year. But you can go in depth on something because you don't have to do everything every year. So that's been a big asset. I'm almost thinking there's something else and I'm forgetting it, but on a good tangent, I'll stop there.
Okay, great. Leonard, I don't know if you wanted to weigh in on this, and then Seth, I see your hand up as well.
No, everyone answered as I was going to answer appropriately. We've been addressing it, and we are definitely on the forefront of these topics and utilizing advocacy to the best of our abilities.
Great. Thanks, Leonard. Seth.
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, I want to absolutely thank CABE for the leadership it has shown and the initiative it has taken to collectively represent some of the voices that on the issue that have come up today, and to kind of champion the cause for exceptional treatment or differential treatment for school districts that arguably are entitled by law to a waiver. I do want to say, even though we're facing a very difficult uphill challenge, and I kind of feel I'm starting to feel like Sisyphus. I would strongly urge CABE to keep on this through next legislative session, everywhere in between, on the way to next session, and even the session beyond that if it takes it, because I'm concerned about two precedents. One is a precedent for CABE. If we take on something hard as an organization and we get slapped down the first time and we walk away, then that sets a precedent that CABE can be dealt with, just with a stern response in one session. Secondly, I'm very concerned, and I think all districts ought to be concerned, and all board members of CABE ought to be highly concerned with the precedent that the Right to Read Act, as it's being administered now, is creating, in that, the Connecticut general statutes delegate the authority for curriculum to local education authorities, to boards. And the Right to Read Act, for all its excellent intent and for all the good it's going to do for a lot of districts, and that's why I support it generally, But it represents a major abrogation of that delegation of authority to local boards. And that is why, in my opinion, last minute, the legislators said, wait a minute, we can't let this go through without a mandatory waiver provision for, districts that are already employing science of reading, right? So if we allow this to stand without pushing back longer, harder through several legislative sessions, if we need to, then we run the risk that the entire raison d'etre for boards of ed in Connecticut, one of our main purposes, which is development of local curricula, will be completely trampled upon with future state endeavors as well. And they're going to next move to math. They're going to move to science. And so, we need to stand tall and dig in on this. And every district should be concerned, even if you're, agreeing to adopt one of the state mandated curricula for K-3.
Well, I can assure you that there is not going to be a lull in the work CABE is doing and in sharing the importance of all this work. During the off session time, I was part of a meeting today where we were strategizing about continuing to have our voice be heard and such, even in, as I said, in the off session time. So we will continue to be working on your behalf on these issues, even if the legislature is not in session. Lindsay, did you have your hand up? Somebody had their hand up and it came down. Maybe not.
Nope, I just
Nope.
put the clapping hands.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I did see hands associated with your name. Great. Okay. Excellent. Sheila, I don't know if you have anything that you want to respond to with any of this. And if you don't, it's fine. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I want to make sure that anything you have to share in relation to all of this is shared.
Yeah, I would just say I more than appreciate Seth's comments, and I read Lindsay's in terms of professional development, and those are ideas in terms of the professional development. Those are ideas that can continue to keep the fight alive, or keep the issue alive. And again, it's this: they pass it, you implement it. And do they have any understanding as to what it means to implement? So that will continue to be the strife, always. Yeah, I guess they're where we stand at the moment. Where we stand at the moment. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Oh, and Lisa, I would just ask that you should do a really great commercial about some of the workshops that are coming up.
You know what? That's in the margin of my piece of paper. Thanks. What other discussion items are there? Okay, then I guess Sheila gave, okay, Arturo.
Just a quick one. I know that some districts probably, as it was noted, maybe running out of the federal funds that came in through during COVID, the ESSERs, and I think we're coming up against deadlines to spend those down. Someone mentioned fiscal cliffs. I just it was brought to my attention this week that what used to be the district that I used to chair, that while there's some concern about how much planning was done to address what now that the cliff is approaching faster, right? So there's concern about what steps are being taken, what's the plan once those funds are no longer there. So I just don't know if this is something that may be a little early, but something for chairs to consider If you're gonna be in that, you are gonna be in that situation in a few months or maybe next year. Just what are you doing, and any experiences and ideas could be helpful to share, just because this is either here already or it's coming.
Okay. Anything else before I do the infomercial that Sheila suggested that I provide? Okay, then I will do as Sheila asked. So as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, we have a number of the mentors for board chairs on this in this Zoom meeting today, and I'm really thrilled that you could join us and hear some of the concerns, more broadly, that board chairs are experiencing. If you are a board chair and you haven't availed yourself to a mentor, you may want to consider that. And if you're interested in more information or simply raising your hand saying, I do want a mentor, reach out to Nick Caruso, who was just waving his hand, because he can help facilitate that matchmaking, which he's been doing a great job of facilitating and growing that program. So that would be one infomercial I would provide. The second one, and this, I should say, this work, as well as what I'm going to be talking about in mainly, is part of some work that's related to legislation passed last year for school boards having training. This is part of that work, although not directly related to the legislation. We also will be offering 4 board chair webinars specifically for board chairs through the latter part of this calendar year. In September, I believe it's September, Nick and Conrad from the CABE staff will be doing one on managing effective meetings. And that is a very broad topic, as we all know. There will be 3 more to follow during the latter part of this, I would say probably 4th quarter of the fiscal year. We will also be offering on August 8th at Water's Edge in Westbrook, what is typically our leadership conference. We are going to be doing a new board member / leadership conference, similar to what we traditionally offer in election years in early December. This is directly tied to that legislation, so it's a great opportunity for you and your seasoned colleagues to get some leadership training, but it's a great way for your newer board members to get training. I should say, because this is being underwritten by the State Department of Education, there will not be a registration fee associated with that August program. And because we just can't get enough of new board member and leadership training, we're going to rinse and repeat and do another version of it on December 3rd. That will be in Rocky Hill. Again, we'll have the 2 tracks, leadership and new board member, again, being underwritten by the State Department of Education. So there will be no registration fee for districts or individuals if they have to pay their way. Details will be coming on those somewhere in my desk here. There is a draft agenda that I've been working on for the August program, but you will see details coming very soon for that. Also for you to know for yourselves, but also for your newer board members, because this is part of the legislation, the board's role in the whole financial picture. What is the board's role in finance? CABE is working with CASBO, who are the experts in this. It's certainly not the CABE staff, but we know who the experts are to work with. There's going to be a webinar, a series of 4 webinars, sort of breaking down the various elements of the financial responsibilities board members have. We're doing one in June. And I know that while we were in this meeting, I saw an email fly through from Sharon Bruce, who's the executive director of CASBO. And part of it said, I have a date for June. So that will be coming out. But we'll be talking about reports. So grants, excess cost, Perkins, preparing for year end. There'll be another webinar in September about how administrators create the budget before it gets to the board so that they understand there is a whole process. There is a lot of work that your central office staff does to get that together to share with all of you. September, we're going to do a webinar on best practices for financial oversight. And then in October, it's Finance 101, reading a financial statement, non-lapsing accounts, line item transfers, those sorts of things. Additionally, we're doing a broader webinar September 25th. That day I can confirm with you. And I'm calling it Stay in Your Lane as far as the finances go. I think Sharon Bruce from CASBO came up with a much nicer title of How to Be a Stellar Board Member, which I think is probably what we'll go with as far as marketing. All of these webinars will be at no cost to school districts. Again, they're being underwritten by the State Department of Education. They do fit in with the mandate that newer board members have training, because part of that legislation is fiscal oversight. These all will be recorded and archived on CABE's website. We know people are stretched in so many different directions. We could not find a time that would work for everybody. So we do them typically midday because some folks can take a lunch break and participate, and then they will be archived on our website. All the webinars will be presented by school business officials. So they're the people who are working with the board members, working with the superintendent, and they know what they want their board members to know. So that is coming up, and I'm sure that I'm forgetting something small like the CABE CAPS convention in November, but we'll talk about that another time. We've got some exciting work going on with that, but I know that's a lot, but I think it's a lot of good stuff to well, Board of Finance folks, I don't know, Lee, but this is a lot of it's a lot, but it's all good things that really the intention is for your boards to have the information, the tools that they need to do their job, not to do the superintendent's job, not to do the school business official's job, or anybody else on staff, but to do their job and to have that awareness of what their role is in these various components. So that's my infomercial. I see Lee's hand.
Is there like a mailing or a link that has all those, especially the finance ones together? I'd like to be able to make that available at our board meeting to our other members on the 22nd.
There is not yet, because we're still working out the details with CASBO, but I'm happy to send an email just saying sort of high level, like I just gave you all, and just say, here's what you can look forward to coming. We'd particularly like to package those finance webinars together so that people can see what they can choose from.
That would be amazing. I'd like to put it into my chair's report on the 22nd, and we've got one newer person on our finance committee, and who may want some of those, like deeply experienced but new to the board and new to Board of Ed uses of this, as opposed to like running hospitals uses of this.
Right. No, that's great. And certainly any board member can attend these. It's not just for newer board members. I mean, you as chairs can attend, your superintendents will have the information as well. We always like to make sure they see the information we're delivering to the boards.
Yeah, there's a couple of them I'm hoping to attend. So.
Great. Brian, I see your hand.
Thank you, Lisa. Can you make sure that we're included with that? Because Nick has set up an email specifically for the mentors, that we're included with that as well, so we can share that with our mentors and help promote it.
Yep. Nick, if I could ask you that when you receive information like that, would you mind terribly sharing it with the group of mentors?
I'll do that. And it generally, a lot of this goes out over the board chair listserv, and the mentors have been added to that as well. So
Great.
well, it's better to get 2 emails than none. So you might get a couple, but that's okay.
Exactly. Great. Thank you, Nick.
And Lisa, if I could just continue your plug a little bit, you know, summer's when things start to slow down a little bit, or they used to. I'm not sure they do anymore, but this is a time of year when boards start to think about maybe doing a summer retreat or goal setting or self-evaluation. Just to remind you, these are all services we provide for you. I so many familiar faces on this screen that I know we provide those services for a lot of you already, but just a reminder that we're here and we're more than willing to help you out as we go along.
Great. Thank you, Nick. Seth.
Yeah, hi. I would just ask if it makes sense at some point to add a component onto the new board member training and the how to be a stellar board member training. When I was in a youth group many years ago, too many years ago, and we received leadership training that included things like how to spot and deal with hidden agendas, how to deal with difficult personalities in a board setting, how to ensure that um, like people that perceive slights and then take it out on other board members in votes and stuff. I just think that it would be helpful to have a seminar that reminds adults that we really ought to be putting our personal baggage aside and our interpersonal politics aside, not red blue, but our interpersonal politics, put those aside for the kids. And I think something like that should be available so that when we have a difficult moment with some of our board members, we could maybe even forward them the link to that and say, look, do me a favor, can you please just watch this and get back in touch with what we're doing here? Thank you.
Seth, you took some of my thunder. I wasn't going to talk about the convention. And while this wouldn't be a webinar, we are having Tim Shriver be the Friday morning speaker at the CABE CAPS convention. And I know some people here have heard Tim. I see Mary giving the thumbs up. She very much was involved with that at the NSBA conference. And you may say, oh, it's the Shriver name. Oh, the Kennedy politics. It couldn't be further from the truth. He works very hard to, it's not us and them. It's not the evil. It's all very, very positive. And Mary is saying it's fabulous. No matter people's personal beliefs or political beliefs, they left that session saying, wow, we need more of this. So in part, that addresses in part what you're talking about, Seth, but I've made a note to perhaps work on some sort of webinar programming so that it can be archived, to your point, and people can access it as needed. Arturo, your hand is up, and I think you may have the last word today.
Thank you. And I'll be quick, but to Seth's point, in my district, we benefited a lot from bringing Nick into to run workshops about the role, responsibilities of a board member, and that was helpful to a point. We also, we were experiencing some town political polarization issues, so we couldn't really diffuse everything, but it was helpful to have those sessions to give some thought to these so they would be reminded of responsibilities. The other piece is we also added other facilitators that would come in and do workshops to give a space for these voices that they just needed a space to discuss their thoughts or or present their ideas and their positions. So sometimes it's better to create a space for that rather than to suppress it. But just wanted to note that Nick was very, very helpful, came a few times. On the legal side, when things became a little more legal, we brought I'm blanking out, but oh, Mooney, am I getting it right? Yeah,
Tom Mooney
Tom Mooney.
should have been
Okay.
a good one. Yep.
And yeah, so that was helpful as well. And but yeah, that's essentially some what I would want to share. And you could never have enough resources, but sometimes you point them in the direction of a video or a training, and they don't go for it because some of them, the intention is to have they be able to have the forum where they present their position. So just sometimes you just have to create that space for them.
Great. I think that's a great way for us to wind down today's meeting. I know we've gone a couple of minutes over, and I appreciate so many of you sticking with us. Tentatively, our next meeting, board chair check-in, would be Thursday, June 20th, the first day of summer. I can't think of a group of people I'd rather kick off summer with than the board chairs and their mentors. So you'll be getting information from us regarding that upcoming webinar. I wish you all a great spring, wonderful end of year activities and graduations. And I look forward to seeing you soon. And don't forget to call us if you need us. Have a great day.